Welcome to Generic Nerdism, a podcast. Welcome back. This is episode 2.
Hello.
Attack of the Clones?
Whatever, those movies were terrible.
I tried to forget that. We are a podcast that will be coming to you bi-weekly now. We've more or less decided.
We decided to go bi-weekly. That's enough.
Yes.
Right? It's not too much.
Not too much, just enough to
Just
let things accumulate, because what we do here is talk about nerdy things that we do.
Yeah, we talk about those things. They're fun. We play Magic, and we play D&D, and we play other things randomly, and those are the things that we will talk about into your ears today.
Here it comes. So if you want to find us, you can find us on Twitter at Generic Nerdism. I am Cardacus, Cardacus.
And you
Twitter.
can find me at Rogathlu, Rogthlu, on Twitter.
Yeah, and if for some reason you don't like Twitter, we are Generic Nerdism at gmail.com as well.
That we are.
So feel free to get at us. We're actually really curious to hear feedback, any suggestions. If you want to throw rogue decks at us to Brewhaha with, if you want to hear about specific main topics. We have no idea exactly how big our listener base is, but we would love to hear from you.
Feedback would be nice.
Feedback would be great.
And then we can do more things to make it more fun to listen to.
So how are you doing? How are you doing, Ross?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah, everything's good. It's nice. It's summery. Everything's great. How are you?
I'm doing very well, in fact.
Very well.
I would say very well.
Good.
Like, kind of, you might say monumentally better than I was before last Friday. You might have heard, but the U.S. Supreme Court decided that gay people can get married in every state.
Wow.
And I'm one of those, so I am now free to get married.
Very good.
So if you're listening, read Duke. Again, that's at I am Cardagus on Twitter. Just maybe maybe
Is he
not
listening?
I'm pretty sure Reed Duke listens to this podcast.
Oh, good.
I would say 60% sure.
Okay.
It's
Well, there you go. Another marriage proposal for that guy.
Yes, I'm sure he has had at least 6.
Nice.
But yeah, it's pretty great. And there's been a lot going on in Magic the Gathering news lately. I'm sure some of you listen to Magic the Gathering podcasts. If you don't, if you're more strictly a D&D person, there's kind of been a big thing going on with women in Magic to bring you up to speed. I'm not going to talk too much specifically about that because a lot of people have talked about it. A lot of people who are better equipped to champion that cause than me. Like literally equipped, I guess you might say. But a woman named Megan Wolf of the Magic the Amateuring podcast, which I highly recommend. I don't know if you've ever listened to it, Ross.
I have not listened to that one.
It's one of my favorite podcasts.
Right.
Megan and Maria are hilarious.
Actually, maybe I listened to it once. But I don't remember.
They're very funny.
Okay.
And they're very funny, and they take a very very kind of awesome casual amateur approach to, or I would say amateur-friendly approach to podcasting about Magic, where they talk about kind of like more beginner issues or more everyday mill issues. But she wrote an article. It went out on Star City Games about 2 weeks ago today, and it was about problems for women in Magic who want to play competitive Magic or even just want to play it in LGS, various issues they run into. And then towards the end of the week, that Friday, Jim Davis put out an article on Star City Games that was more or less a rebuttal. And since then, there have been many rebuttals to the rebuttal. And more or less, the general consensus seems to be that, in fact, it is not really great to be a woman in Magic to try to play competitively.
Right. I understand. Yes, it does seem like it would be an intimidating environment, no matter how confident of a woman you are. And that's a bit of a shame. I'm sure everybody agrees with that.
I would say that most people agree with that, and that there's a somewhat vocal minority that does not, and that's unfortunate.
Okay.
But what I would like to talk about is really just a lot of people ask, like, what is the solution? And speaking as a different sort of minority in the world of Magic, as a gay man, I listen to Power 9 podcast as well. I'm just gonna name drop a lot of other podcasts this episode.
Okay.
Power 9 podcast is a great podcast coming out of Europe. I heavily encourage you to listen to it. It's like the only podcast on the MTG Cast network that comes out on Sunday. But they had a guest who was a woman and they were talking about this issue. And one thing that she said really resonated with me, and it was that she has to pretend to be, or not that she has to, I guess she had to. She was talking in the past tense. She had to pretend to be someone else in order to play Magic with her friends. Like, things were happening, things were being said in conversation, and just very casually that made her uncomfortable, but that she had to accept that. That she had to accept that because of just wanting to play Magic. Like, she didn't want to step out of line. She didn't want to create problems. She didn't want to create drama. So she kind of just quietly bit her tongue and continued playing Magic.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's something I can speak to. I play with a great group of people now who have never given me any reason to feel uncomfortable in their presence because of my sexuality. But in the past, when I was a teenager at various local game shops I've been to, I had to just listen to very casual homophobic slurs thrown around. I never felt comfortable, talking with people who I kind of considered casual friends about my love life or anything like that. And it's really discouraging. It's something that, might have caused me to not drop out of Magic like I did right after high school. And so really just about being more conscious of what you say. You never know who's in the room. Obviously, you should ostensibly know if a woman's in the room and maybe not say things, but that's what makes it so pernicious, is that when there is no women in the room, people do feel comfortable saying that. And so if you're someone who considers yourself, an ally of this cause, if you hear someone saying something that you wouldn't want your girlfriend or your sister or your mother or your female friend being subjected to, say something. Tell someone that's not cool, whether it be in your casual play group, at your LGS, or at a major tournament. We live in New York City, me and Ross.
Yeah.
And every once in a while on the subway, you will hear, if you see something, say something.
Oh, right. I've seen that, yeah.
And it's a great way to approach it. It's a great way to just be an evolved human being who is making their community in Magic a better place for women and transgendered people and people of color and gay people and just everyone in general.
Yeah, just be cool, guys. Just be cool.
Just think before you talk.
Yeah.
Sorry, that might have went on a little bit long, but I've been listening to these podcasts for like 2 weeks, and I feel pretty strongly about it.
There you go. That's your 2 cents.
That is my, I would say, approximately 76 cents.
All right.
Approximately.
Good. So let's get back to our general task at hand, which is to talk some Magic here today. We unfortunately didn't get to play any D&D in the meantime since the last time.
It is very well. I got to play a little bit, but I'll talk about that later.
Right,
but our overarching Magic D&D chronicle has been waylaid by player participation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. But I've been planning a lot of things in the meantime, and I'm excited for the next one. I'm getting really hyped on my plans. Better not screw them up, players.
I will attempt not to screw up your plans,
All right.
GM. So I guess that means that it's time for brew. Oh, come on, man.
All right.
We practiced that for like 15 minutes before we started the cast.
Oh, dear.
And you just left me hanging.
It's time for the
Brewhaha. Yes, that's what
everyone's
time it
ready
is.
for this.
Everyone's really no one is more excited than everyone.
I'm excited because I brewed a lot of jank and it's good. It turns out to be good.
Apparently it's a little good.
Nice.
I'm not salty, not at all. not even a little.
All right. So shall I start again, like last time?
Yeah, feel free. Well, so this time we actually played the decks against each other. We brewed decks in the same format, and then we played them against each other before we started the cast. And we have some results.
Yes, we do.
To discuss.
So maybe we'll
maybe
should
with
we
less
say
siblings.
the decks first? I mean, it's already clear that I won the match, right?
I don't know if it was strictly clear that you won the match, but
I think it should be.
Spoiler alert, everyone!
Spoiler alert!
Ross won the match.
My deck won, and it won in 2 games.
It won in 2 games.
So how about this? This deck was actually brewed as a joke, as a booby prize for our Legacy League. people were very slack with submitting their deck lists on time. So, like in a previous iteration of this league, we decided, some of us, that having a booby deck that people would get if they forgot to submit a list would be funny. And this is the deck that I came up with on a suggestion of Matt White's that I thought would be funny. And, well, I thought it would be terrible, but it turned out okay. So what I've done is made a Squirrel Tribal Tokens deck.
This is a Legacy Squirrel Tribal Tokens deck.
Yeah, Legacy Squirrel Token Tribal. So unfortunately, there's no Squirrel Nest Earthcraft combo allowed.
Yeah, if that were allowed, everyone would just be playing
Everyone would be
Squirrel
all over
Tribal
it.
Token and Legacy.
All right. But yeah, Earthcraft is banned, so that's not in the deck. But what I do have is a bunch of things that make squirrels. So I start with some token generators, like Chatter of the Squirrel and Acorn Harvest, which respectively put either 1 or 2 1/1 green squirrel tokens into play. And they both have flashback, so I get double value off those.
I don't know how in depth you need to go, because these are like legacy staples that people are used to hearing about.
All right. And then I do have Squirrel Nest, which enchants a land and lets it tap to put a 1/1 green squirrel creature token into play. Then I have some slightly larger squirrels. Squirrel Wrangler.
Slightly larger squirrels.
Looks like he's not a squirrel on the card, but I feel like that would have been corrected to be squirrel.
Well, no, he wrangles the squirrels.
He's a druid.
He's the one who...
the human in the background.
Yeah, he's the one that, like, he wrangles them.
Yeah.
He puts them into formation so that they can be carted off to the squirrel cattle farms that apparently exist in Prophecy.
Indeed. Oh, yeah, so this is Squirrel Wrangler. He does things. He sacks lands to put squirrels into play, and he sacks lands to pump squirrels with +1/+1. I didn't actually see that guy in the match. I did see this guy, and he was a big deal. Squirrel Mob, a 2/2 squirrel for 3 mana.
That is a Squirrel Tarmogoyf, everybody. That is a Squirrel Tarmogoyf.
He gets +1/+1 for each other squirrel in play, and he was pretty big because I made a lot of squirrels. The other guy that was helpful was Adaptive Automaton, who I kind of put in every tribal deck ever, unless they don't need it. So like Merfolk, Goblins don't really need it, but every other tribe needs a little bit of help.
I feel like Elves probably don't need it either.
Well, Elves are just overwhelming in numbers, right? Whereas this guy pumps your team.
Well, they've got like Elvish Archdruid who taps for insane amounts of mana and pumps your team.
Plenty of elves out there for elves, but I never played elves.
Yeah.
I was never interested in playing elves. I generally don't play green decks full stop. But this one seems fun. Then there's Deranged Hermit, Cube Staple.
Also an elf.
Is an elf, yeah. So he comes in with 4 squirrel friends and gives squirrels +1/+1. He's a good dude.
He does have Echo, though. So
He does have Echo.
You do have to pay for that.
Yeah, yes you do. He is, well, yeah.
If you want the bonus, if you want the pump.
If you want the pump, you need to pay Echo. Then apart from that, those are the squirrels basically. Then they have a little bit of ramp. They have Arbor Elf, who combos nicely with Squirrel Nest.
I learned.
Not as nicely with Earthcraft, but not as nicely as Earthcraft. But yeah, Arbor Elf for 2 squirrels a turn is okay. Gaia's Cradle, and
also combos nicely with every other card in this deck.
Yeah, that was a really key card for winning actually. To get squirrels fast enough, that thing was important. And then Swarmyard, which was letting me regenerate my big guy, my big Tarmogoyf squirrel. What was his name?
Squirrelgoyf.
Squirrel Mob.
Oh no.
Just let me
Squirrel Mob.
Squirrelgoyf, yeah. And then the win con, I guess, is Overwhelm. Just go wide, overwhelm. I think what did I have?
I think
10
I think the win con was actually just so many squirrels.
So many squirrels. But with overwhelm, I couldn't. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's the deck, and it seems. Well, I mean, it's aggro. Just get aggro, go for it, and it was pretty fun. So Squirrel Tribal going to break the legacy format.
Yeah, it's going to break it wide open.
Yeah, I'd like to try it against some other legacy decks now. Actually, I've had a bit of fun with it.
It's exactly what I said when we went into the matchup, is that it's kind of the like epitome of a fair deck. Like it's just like spitting out lots of creatures. So if there's a legacy deck with an elaborate plan, say, or the ability to stumble, or there's numerous combo decks in legacy that might have trouble finding their combo. And we'll capitalize on it and kill them very quickly.
Yeah, it was fairly quick. I feel not as explosive as
a lot of the ones that it could get over. Like it's not like Legacy Burn or anything.
No.
Where it's just blistering fast.
Yeah.
But a lot of the ones would actually like. So I'll talk about my deck before we talk about the match. My deck is a riff on the standard Mud deck, the artifact deck. I was just wanting to brew around Monastery Mentor. I thought maybe that's a card that should see some play in Legacy, seeing play in Vintage. So hopefully good enough for Legacy. And I thought, what deck plays a lot of non-creature spells? Mud. Mud loves non-creature spells. And so I kind of tweaked the mana base to add a little bit of white to it. The only white represented in the actual deck list is 3 Monastery Mentors and 2 Enlightened Tutors. And then after that, it's a pretty standard Mud package. I did make some choices. I eliminated a lot of the creatures from the Mud deck. Like I don't have Lodestone Golem in there. In some very basic playtesting I did with the deck, it just didn't seem like it was doing what it wanted to there. Mm-hmm. I switched out the Wormcoil engines for Batter Skulls. I feel like that serves a fairly similar purpose while still triggering Monastery Mentor and also enabling a win condition that could have allowed me to win one of the games had I gotten there, where I just bounce Batter Skull infinite times with a Monastery Mentor in play and make infinite monks and make them infinitely large.
That sounds good.
But it's just a pretty standard Mud deck. It's not a lot that's too surprising in there. What I really feel like the strength of the deck is, if it actually could be a deck, is that it has some fantastic Silver Bullet and sideboard options with Enlightened Tutor enabling the deck. That can enable you to grab your Staff of Domination or your Kuldotha Forge Master, or even just a Trinisphere that totally ruins quite a few decks, or even a Chalice of the Void set on 1 can really play havoc on a Delver deck's plan.
That's true.
And so I feel like that's where I want to go with it. I'm not smart enough at Legacy to really build a tuned sideboard.
That's a big deal for Legacy, right? I feel like it's a really big deal to have a nice sideboard going on.
And I feel like this one has some potentially great sideboard options while still having that Mud just ramp out, a turn 2 Batter Skull. There's plenty of Goldfish hands that I had where it was like, turn 2, I have everything and every one of at least every card in my deck in play, it felt like.
Yeah, I had to get past 2 Batter Skulls in the match there, but I just went wide enough with 10 Squirrels and an Overwhelm to do it. Yeah,
and I just couldn't draw. Like, if I had drawn an Enlightened Tutor or a Kuldotha Forge Master, things would have been okay.
Yeah.
But could not do that.
Oh, dear.
And in game 2, I managed to get out my Singleton Ensnaring Bridge, but failed to sacrifice my Staff of Nin, and then drew into 2 Kuldotha Forge Masters and couldn't play them both out, and so he was still able to just come in and squirrel up my face.
I remember the whole bunch of tutus under the Ensnaring Bridge.
My face was just littered with squirrel marks.
Yeah, scratch you to death.
That's what happened. If I'm a planeswalker in this scenario, and you just swarm me with squirrels.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we go. That was good fun.
Good times.
Yeah.
And in other news related to Brewhaha, we do have 2 different brews today.
The beers, of course. We like beers, as you may know.
Yes. I have Ommegang. I went with Ommegang again. I actually really enjoy their beers. This one was the Abbey Ale, which is a double ale.
Double.
It's
double Belgian style. Huh?
Pardon me. It's a double ale.
Yes. There you go.
It's like I'm saying it's an Abzan ale.
Right.
But which I liked a little bit more than what Ross brought to the table.
Yeah, I like the Abbey Ale better as well, I think. What I brought was an English beer from Sam Smith's in Yorkshire, England. Not quite my homeland, but England is my homeland. So I thought, why not get an English beer?
In case you couldn't tell.
I'm not from Yorkshire.
Ross is fairly British.
Yeah, but not Yorkshire-ish. That'd be the worst. They have the worst accents. Sorry if anybody from Yorkshire is listening.
Yeah,
as unlikely as that seems.
What were we just talking about? Being a little more conscious about what we said?
Well, whatever. Like,
maybe let's not alienate people from Yorkshire on the
Alright.
cast.
Sorry, Yorkshire folks. You have beautiful voices. All right, but the beer I have is a Sam Smith oatmeal stout. And actually, let me taste it. Wow. That's stouty.
For the record, I have been tasting both liberally throughout the cast so far.
All right, that's good. Now, this beer is okay, but it's not as good as the Omegang. So let's stick with American beer next time, I think. It is American, right?
It is American, yes. Yeah. I'm actually a big fan of stouts. I tend to prefer dark beers, stouts, and porters. And I've drinking. That's not good. I've drank quite a few oatmeal stouts in my time, and this one is it's an oatmeal stout.
It's middle of the road.
That's what I can say about it. It's not terrible. I could drink quite a few of them. I would be happy to, in fact. Right, but I have had better oatmeal stouts.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry. I did a poor job this time.
It's okay. I forgive you, and I feel like we can easily move on.
Let's get over it now.
Grave beer faux pas. Faux pas. Yeah. So that's the Brewhaha segment for you this week, folks. It was interesting, and I do like the format a little bit better when we actually play the decks against each other and then talk about it. Yeah. So we're gonna keep doing that. I
still think that your deck has way more potential to be a good legacy deck than mine. Despite the result of the match there.
I humbly agree with you.
You didn't get there, but you just didn't get there. You could easily get there.
Yeah, and that's the mud deck, it feels like, most of the time.
Yeah.
But so next week we are going to be doing Modern, I believe.
We will do Modern. I already got Brewing. As I said before, I enjoy that. So
no spoilers.
I've been brewing, but no spoilers.
But if you have a deck that you'd be interested in seeing me play, possibly, feel free to shoot that at us on Twitter or however you would like to get at us. That's totally fine.
Yeah. And before anybody says what they think my deck might be, it isn't goblins.
It's not.
I have brewed that as well.
Though I did lend you 4 Rabble Masters and 4 Goblin or Mardu Scouts.
Yes, I have brewed modern goblins, but that's not for the Brewhaha. That's far too normal.
Yes. We're looking to get out of the box here.
Yeah.
We hate boxes.
Yeah, screw boxes.
Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. If there are any boxes in our audience, we really apologize.
Or anybody that really likes being in a box.
Or anyone who likes being in a box. So that brings us to our more general review segment, where we talk about what we've been up to.
Yeah, and we have been up to quite a lot recently.
Yeah, I have a whole big list of things that I don't want to forget to talk about.
Yes, as do I. I'm
gonna actually just start off. Yesterday, in fact, we're recording on a Monday. Was Pride? It's the Pride March in New York City. Pride March. That's what they like us to call it.
Okay.
And I marched in it. I marched with the Gay Geeks of New York. So shout out to any of you if you're listening this, since I have aggressively shared the podcast with you guys.
Hi, Gay Geeks. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Yeah, I hope so too. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of a rainy, misty, dank morning, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But we made the best of it. We had a great time. The energy the entire time was fantastic. It's the first time I've ever marched in any parade, never mind a parade that's so significant to me, because really it's, two of the bigger parts of my identity intersecting, Gay Geeks. And they're a great group that do a lot of events in the city. But, I did that. I did an after party with them. I pretty much hung out with them all day, and it was a really great time. Had a lot of fun.
Very good. I was not there.
You were not there. I noticed.
Yeah. But, yes, well done.
Thank you.
I'm glad you had a good time.
Backtracking a single day to a place where we both were.
Let's work chronologically backwards.
Backwards.
That seems fine.
Let's see if we can actually do that.
Well, my stuff is in order, so I can do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Good for you.
What a nerd. Okay, so Saturday, yes, it was Jasper's birthday.
It was our friend Jasper's birthday. Happy birthday, Jasper.
Happy birthday, buddy. Hope you had a good time. What did we do? We played some Magic for a long time. Like 8 hours
quite a
of
long
Magic.
time.
It was pretty good. We did a Chaos draft.
For those of you unfamiliar with Chaos Draft, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. You bring random packs of Magic cards, preferably as random as you can get, is most people's treatment, and draft with them. You just make weird decks.
Yeah, it's fast becoming my least favorite limited format, in fact.
Your least favorite limited format.
I hate it.
You do not like Chaos Draft.
Everybody's decks just end up lame, right? It's boring. Because all you have to do is draft as many good, like, vanilla creatures as you can. If they have effects when they come in or activated abilities that are good, that's great. But there's no synergy ever.
Yeah, no, you just pick up like the best 2-drops you can and as many removal spells as you can get your hands on, and you have some bombs, hopefully, unless you're me, and then you do your best. You just do your best.
Yeah, a good bomb will get you there most of the time.
Yeah.
And the guy that won the draft, his bomb was, well, he had 2 of those angels from Gatecrash, Guardian of the Gateless, I think.
Oh, I didn't actually play against him, so I didn't see his deck at all.
There were 3 of those angels in the draft, and they're big deals. They're like 3/3s who can block any number of creatures and get +1/+1 for each creature they block.
That seems pretty good in this format.
Very good. I was more than happy to cast that removal spell from MM15, which is...
Nameless Inversion?
Yeah, Nameless Inversion on that thing.
I don't know why I knew
times.
that, but I did, because I didn't know your deck either. I didn't play you at all.
I had to cast Nameless Inversion on those angels a lot. They were 3/3s, so it just about got them. But that was a good card. And he had a Pyreheart Wolf, which I considered recently for my Tiny Leader deck.
Okay.
Which is a 1/1 wolf for 3 mana, which sounds bad. But when he attacks, he gives all of your creatures menace.
Oh, menace.
Yes.
From
Origins.
From Magic Origins, that new keyword. That's exciting.
And it was a Dark Ascension card.
So essentially, he makes your team relatively unblockable.
Yeah, and also he has Undying.
Oh,
so he does it twice.
I've never seen that card before, so
it's good.
Yeah, it seems all right.
Nearly got into my Tiny Leader deck, which I'm excited about, which is a soldier deck.
Soldier Tiny Leader deck.
Yeah.
Is he a soldier?
He's not a soldier.
Oh,
that's why I cut him.
All right. Sorry, Pyreheart Wolf, for not being a soldier.
He was the only non-soldier in there, but he got cut. Yeah.
But,
and then after the Chaos Draft, we did some more Magic.
Yes. Right? We played some Modern. You and me.
We did play some Modern. Yeah, I got a lot of Modern in with my Modern decks, which was fun.
I was playing for a really long time in the draft. It felt like, and then I'm another league that I'm a part of that we finished up our league for. I actually alluded to this in the last cast. I played Standard Goblin Tribal with Obelisk of Erd.
Oh yeah, I was excited to see how that went. How did it go?
It actually was pretty decent. I beat Esper Dragons.
Nice.
I lost to the Tarkir red deck, very similar to what Martin Dang won the Pro Tour with.
Uh-huh.
He was doing the same thing as me, just so much better. And I didn't get any like nut draws against him like I did against the Esper deck, which was like turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2, 2 1-drops, turn 3, Hordling Outburst, Obelisk of Erd.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty strong to have 18 power on the board going into turn 4.
How did you do in the Chaos Draft, actually?
Oh, I think I did pretty well. We kind of just didn't play the last round, but my deck was decent. My first pick was a Pacifism. My first pack was a Magic 2012 pack because I was like, there's good removal. There's some good bombs. I opened Ancestral Visions and passed it happily. Or no, Visions from Beyond and passed it happily.
There was a couple
despite
of those.
it being a beautiful card.
It is.
I did manage to pick it up on the wheel, and I was happy to do so. I'm happy to have it in my collection.
Nice.
But I first picked a Pacifism. I second picked a Kodama's Reach, and I was like, all right, 5-color good stuff. Hopefully I'll pick up some good stuff.
All right.
And then proceeded to open no bombs.
Shit.
I was past a late Savage Twister that was pretty instrumental to my deck's performance.
Yeah.
But I just had like a very defensive, rampy 5-color deck. I got a Cloud Reach Manta. I had, a couple of removal spells. I had Savage Twister. I brought an Alliances pack and unfortunately got Pyrokinesis instead of Force of Will. And that did make it into my deck. It's a good card, great card for limited.
Cool.
Not quite worth $100,
No.
but no.
There were a couple of money cards around the table.
Yeah,
The
a friend of ours.
Phyrexian Obliterator.
And so we got a Dark Confidant out of their Modern Masters 1 pack.
Oh, Modern Masters 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Those
packs are really expensive, no?
Yeah, well, I mean, so are Alliances packs,
okay.
Pyrokinesis versus Pyrokinesis totally beats Dark Confidant Just
sure.
in the grand scheme of things, like if you have a Dark Confidant in play, I can pyrokinesis it and do 3 to your other creatures as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so I feel like I made the correct choice.
So what was your record in the end?
It was 2-1, and we didn't play the 4th round.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
we gave up after 3 because
we were just like, yeah, this guy wins, and let's
Right.
do other things now.
Yeah, I also went 2-1, and I had like a blue-black control deck, kind of. My bomb was Gin of Wishes, which I got out of my first pack, which was also an M12 pack.
Very strong.
It was
That Gin of Wishes.
4/4 flyer, which lets me cast stuff off the top of my deck for free. Yeah, well, not for free, for 4 mana. Right? Pay 4 mana, reveal the top card, you may cast it for free.
Yeah.
It's kind of lame, but it seems fun. And then I had a bunch of other flyers and a whole mess of removal spells.
You were the only one.
Yeah.
I think you were the only one with the whole mess of removal
A
spells.
lot of them were the stupid kind of blue enchantment ones, which just lock you down for a bit. Or give you -13, -0. That was my favourite one.
That's a fantastic card.
Yeah.
Very flavorful.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, that was the Chaos Draft. It was good. So they did their Goblin Wizard League stuff afterwards.
Yep. I went. Where did I go? I went 1-1 in Goblin Wizard League, and then we didn't play the 3rd round because someone else had basically already won. I believe they had to play out a match, but I was the other people and I were like, yeah, let's do other stuff. That seems more fun.
Other stuff. Yeah, we
Other
played some
stuff.
Modern.
I
I managed to do a turn 3 kill on Ben with my
Oh,
my landfall deck from last time.
and I'm not afraid of Zektar Shrine Expedition.
Even though it killed you turn 3?
I'm not afraid of it. Like that's like being afraid of being struck by lightning. You know, like why would I be afraid of that? I can't live my life that way, Ross.
Yeah, that was a good draw.
It was a good draw, and I played Ad Nauseam combo.
Yeah.
Just picked it up and started playing like you do with combo decks all the time, right?
Yeah, that's a tough deck to play when you haven't even looked at the
I did
list.
okay. I feel like I did a decent job with it.
Yeah, you got 1 game on me, right?
I got there.
Yeah,
I got there.
that's my deck. And I like that deck a lot. It's good fun. I played that deck in a Modern tournament that we had.
That did happen.
Um,
That was a week ago Sunday.
yeah, so we're gradually getting back in time to the last podcast. Roughly a week ago, I think, right? Was when the Modern tournament happened.
This was a 16-man Modern
It
tournament.
was a big tournament for our group. We had to get some extraneous people from outside the group in to get up to 16 men.
Oh, I love randoms.
And I say men. It was a shame there were no women involved. Although one was down on the list to be involved up until the last moment, but then didn't come, which is a shame. So
I did not go. I was not at this event.
No.
It was the day after my birthday, and I had I had other things I wanted to do.
Not the day of the catastrophic hangover.
No, that was early. That was
another
before
day.
my birthday.
All right. Right. Anyway, yeah, so we had 15 guys here to play some Modern, and we had a really nice spread of decks. We had a couple of twin decks, a couple of Delver decks, for some reason a couple of mill decks, which did not do well.
That's
We
shocking.
had a burn deck, we had an affinity deck, we had a tokens deck, we had a Jund deck. We had someone playing the Goryo's Vengeance, Grizzlebrand, Through the Breach, Borborygmus,
I believe
Nourishing Shoal combo
I believe
thing.
it's being called Grishol brand.
Grizzlebrand. Yeah, that seemed like fun.
Yes,
And
I
he did
love that
okay.
deck. For the record, there's a good chance that I would sleeve that up to play it in Modern if I had any reason to play Modern in the near future.
Yeah,
It seems like a lot of fun.
yeah.
I love splicing.
Splice.
I would call that deck Splice of Life.
Nice. That sounds
Because
good.
Nourishing Shoal gains you a lot of life.
Oh,
Bob Wong, if you're listening to this, feel free to pick that up.
nice. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I mean, someone was playing like a Collector Company Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit deck thing that was pretty good.
Yeah, a Podless Pod, as they're calling it.
Podless Pod, if you want.
All the kids these days.
Podless Pod, what a ridiculous name for anything, but yeah, that was a good deck. We had me playing Ad Nauseam. Someone was on Infect, and we had this weird guy that I lost to. No, not a weird guy. A guy playing a weird deck, which was like Doran the Siege Tower and Assault Formation, and then a bunch of like 0x creatures.
I had not heard about that until this moment, and I am so happy.
I was doing that, and I was getting beaten down by a Nyx Fleece Ram with an enchantment, a totem armor enchantment on it that gives it +0/+4.
That's fantastic.
It's hitting me
So
for
it's like
9 every
that was
turn
a
with the Nyx Fleece Ram.
9/9 that you can't 1-for-1.
Well, it's still an 0/9, but it was hitting for 9 damage.
If you want to get technical,
Yes. It was horrible. It was the worst.
That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it was. I lost, but I could have won, and I was very salty, which is a shame. But there you go. I was confused by the rogue deck, and he got the. But yeah, that event was a lot of fun. We got down to Jund versus Tokens with Sean and Jasper in the final, and then I believe they did not play and they drew the match.
Because there was actually a prize involved in this, right?
There was a cash prize.
There was a cash prize.
We each paid $10 to play the games, and
so it was $80 each.
No, I think third and fourth place got their money back, and first and second split the rest.
So $60 each, not bad.
Yeah.
Not
well,
bad,
there's only 15 people there, so whatever. I don't know how.
All right,
exactly
fine. I'm done doing math, Ross.
All right.
That is all the math I can do in one podcast.
Math.
But
yeah, that was good.
To go forward/backward in time, I actually did do one thing in between there. I did get to play a little bit of D&D last week.
Cool.
This was with another kind of gay gamer group that I am a part of. We just kind of meet at a gay bar now and play games. And we did a D&D one-shot. This was a 5th edition D&D thing where we made level 5 characters.
Cool.
It was pirate themed.
What?
Also cool.
Right. Pirate themed.
It was pirate themed.
Yeah.
I made a plucky half-elf sorcerer who was kind of like a ship's wizard type character. He, I basically just thematically picked all of the lightning / thunder / wind, like weather related spells. Yeah. That was all he had going for him. It wound up being very good because our only combat scene took place on a ship, and they are very narrow. And I had a lot of pushes and like knockback type effects. So I was just like knocking people off the side of the boat.
That's pretty good.
It was the DM was a little surprised that was happening.
That's one of the things about the wizard and sorcerer classes that I find so appealing, that you can really sort of build the character around what spells they have and why they have those spells, you know.
Yeah, it's much like two sorcerers standing next to each other are usually much different characters than two fighters or two rogues, at least in the early levels.
Yeah.
But it was fun. The highlight of it for me was my friend Shane was playing a dragonborn rogue named Take. Take had a very Western sensibility, an Eastern sensibility, the opposite of that, Eastern sensibility about him, and he did everything in character in the voice of George Takei. Every single thing he did.
Oh God, that's brilliant.
And
I wish I'd seen that.
Really difficult not to just crack up throughout the entire adventure.
Wonderful.
But it was a very fun thing to do. It was very like low key, very humorous. Like the tone of the adventure was humorous as well, and we all just had a lot of fun.
Cool. I wish I was better at voices. It would be better as a DM to be good at voices.
Yeah, I look forward to eventually busting out my vocal prowess when I become a DM.
George Takei style.
Yeah, just everyone, all my NPCs are George Takei. Like just sound like George Takei. They're all George Takei.
Well, that sounds easy.
It's
get around that guy.
It's my world. I do what I want.
All right, it's sweet.
Backtracking a little bit further, we get to.
You know, I feel we've lost the chronological aspect of this. So whatever.
Well, okay.
Just to say random things.
All right. Well, I believe it was my birthday next, wasn't it?
Oh, your birthday. Well, that was very soon after the previous podcast.
Yes,
we had a lot of fun then as well.
That was a lot of fun. Ross and I went in on a box of Modern Masters 2015.
Yeah.
It was perhaps the worst box of Modern Masters 15 that anyone has opened.
I don't know of anybody having opened a worse box.
I really find it hard to believe that it happened.
Yeah. Although it was very strange because there seemed to be extra rares at the end of the draft, which I didn't understand, but still, the box added up to like less than $100.
Yeah, it was. we had a Kozilek, we had a Bitter Blossom.
Kozilek and Bitter Blossom, that's like $60.
And then we had 2 Daybreak Coronets.
Yeah, Daybreak Coronet.
Our
halfway to the old Boggles deck.
There was definitely a Comet Storm.
There was that, yes.
And it didn't even end up in either of our decks, which is like doubly disappointing. Instead, we got to get our faces wrecked by Comet Storm.
Yeah.
I drafted a pretty boilerplate Spirits deck.
Right.
I just kind of went after it, pack one, pick one, nameless inversion. That was the only nameless inversion in my deck, but I did have a pretty good critical mass of all the other cards that make the deck work, and it performed really well. I love just grinding people out. I love value, and that's what I got to do. I did lose to our friend Steven, who was playing 5-color control with a Comet Storm. I could have got there against him. There was our second game. I just could not draw a 4th land for 12 turns, and at any point, if I had drawn it, I would have won. But it was a very interesting draft. I felt good about my deck. Cool. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I also felt good about my deck, which was the old blue-red spirit, blue-red elementals deck. And I actually first picked I went hard at this from the start because I first picked an Incandescent Soulstoke over an Etched Champion, for which I've been berated by everybody that I've told that to.
Including me.
Including you.
Including me.
Yes, but I went all in on that, and from that first pick, and eventually went 2-1 with it. Only losing to Sean, who was up against Stephen in the final. Yeah. There you go.
He had the nut graph deck, which is when nobody else at the table picks any of the cards for the graph deck.
Yeah, he was still salty for getting thrumming birded by me before.
Yeah, you when you have 3 thrumming birds and like all the graph creatures and a lot of other good spells too.
Yeah, that shit goes well.
It works well. It works out, I guess.
It's quite good fun actually, that deck as well. There's a lot of things to think about, and it's a really nice synergy. It's probably one of my favorite decks in the format.
Okay. I don't know if I can say the same thing.
I don't know that it's the best, but I just enjoy it.
Throwing
1/1 counters everywhere.
I really enjoyed the Spirit deck. I think I would enjoy just about any of the decks besides Affinity. It just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, it didn't appeal to me, and that's why I passed Champion on.
Part of it's probably recoil from actually having played during Mirroring Kamigawa Standard,
right,
when Affinity was just like, oh, okay, so it's either that or Tooth and Nail. Okay, great.
Right.
This
Weird.
is a really fun format.
Okay.
But did you have anything else?
I suppose the other notable thing about that Modern Masters draft was that I managed to live the dream with Swans of Bryn Argol. and
I also had a Swans of Bryn Argol in my deck, because that is a spirit, folks.
They were in the top 10 of the money cards, which
yes.
made me very sad. But yeah, I lived the dream with Swans of Bryn Argol and Burst Lightning. Draw 4 cards. That was good.
I don't know if that's the dream with Swans of Bryn Argol.
Yeah,
I feel like it's like control Seismic Assault and Swans of Bryn Argol and discard your hand and draw a new hand and.
Yeah, but I mean the draft in the sense of Modern Masters draft.
Oh yeah, no, that's pretty good.
That's the dream in that format.
I think the dream for that format is actually like cast your Swans, Savage Twister for 6. I think that's probably better.
That does sound better.
I think that sown's good.
All right, now I'm embarrassed. I wanted to combust him.
That would have been sweet.
Had to settle for Burst Lightning.
That would have been sweet.
Yeah. The other things, I mean, I also was part of a cube draft, which was good. I drafted a nice green-white token deck in the cube. This is our friend Chris's cube, and he has a really nice sort of legacy cube with a lot of really powerful stuff in it. And he's also beautifully foiled a lot of the cards, which makes it an extra fun experience to draft. So I first picked a Garruk Primal Hunter, which made me go straight into green. I was like, I'm green and I'm nothing else. I did pick up some useful fixing, which enabled me to go into white and also splash for Siege Rhino. And this is where I first enjoyed the fun of playing with Deranged Hermit and Whisperwood Elemental in the same deck. And it was good. I had a lot of tokens and a lot of manifests. And also a Skull Clamp, which is nice with tokens.
That seems good with tokens.
Yeah, it was good. I went 2-1 with that, and again lost to Sean. Sean is the bane of my life at the moment.
Oh,
can't beat that guy.
Sorry, Matt White. You've been bumped.
I haven't played Matt White for a bit. I did beat him in the league, which was a ridiculous match, but I won't go into that.
Okay.
It was not worth talking about. It's the worst match in history.
All right, worst match in history. It happened here
terrible.
first.
He would agree with me that was a terrible match.
All right.
I managed to cast a spell, and he missed the trigger on his Chalice of the Void, and I missed the trigger on his Chalice of the Void, and it resolved.
All right. So you guys need some stricter judges at your league.
That gives you a flavour of how terrible the match was.
Yeah. Okay. That's all we need to say.
Yeah, that's enough.
I only have one other thing on the docket
Okay.
That
Go for that.
Do you have another thing?
No, I'm done with recapping.
All right, so I will do my thing. I talked about it again in the last podcast. I was going to it very shortly thereafter. I went to FlameCon, which is
the old FlameCon,
the first gay New York City-based comic convention. I wore the armor that we linked in the last podcast note, and we will do again. It's also the spot of my Twitter handle because I really enjoyed it.
I should mention also that I made a
magic
card based on the Cardicus armor, which I'll post in the show notes for this show.
This was my birthday present from Sean and Ross.
Yeah. I made the card and Sean printed it on his nice laser printer, and that was your birthday present.
It was a custom. It was a custom Cardicus card, and it was beautiful. It was the best birthday present I got, actually.
It's pretty OP, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a strong card.
It's good.
But
I'd play that card.
I'm a strong player, so
he would be my tiny leader in a second.
He would be everyone's tiny leader.
Yes,
he would be banned in tiny leaders.
Yeah, sure.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of artists, like gay comic artists. There were a lot of just gay gamers in general. There was a game floor on the second floor where it was either people who kind of like made their own games or made games on apps or demoing them and getting people involved in them, or just people gaming in general. There was a lot of cosplay. I actually entered a cosplay contest in my suit. I did not win, unfortunately, but
That's a shame. I think you should have.
I did. Well, no. I mean, most of the people who won, I would say, very much deserve to be ahead of me. They put a lot more work into their costumes.
Oh, okay. Maybe were they dressed as things as opposed?
They were dressed as real things. They were dressed as recognizable things.
Okay,
all of them.
Yes.
There was a Asgardian Storm cosplay, which is a very specific nerdy thing that people apparently love.
Okay, I don't know what that is. It's too specific.
A Starfire from Teen Titans, and there was a Woody from Toy Story.
Okay,
were the winners. But I actually ran into one of the judges at a bar afterwards, and he told me that my costume actually was pretty much very in contention.
Cool.
And I'm going to use that as an opportunity for a segue.
Cool.
Because what I realized is a lot of people really loved my costume. They really responded to it well. They wanted to take my picture. They wanted to tell their friends about it. Because what I realized is that there's a lot of people who are, consider themselves geeks or nerds, but don't actively play Magic. But almost universally, what I found is that those people do have a positive relationship with Magic. Either they...
Okay, I didn't really understand what you mean.
Okay, what I mean, I was just going to keep talking, but that works too.
All right, go for it.
Is that most people either played Magic in middle school or high school, or had friends who did, or had significant others who did, or just have heard of it and kind of like the idea, or maybe they tried out Duels of the Planeswalker on Steam, or... just something where they've encountered Magic. It is now very much a force in the gaming world.
Yeah.
And are positively disposed towards it, but don't necessarily play it.
Right.
And it's a lot of different reasons. Either social reasons that they moved into a social group that didn't necessarily think Magic was cool. Maybe they moved to a town where there wasn't a lot of Magic to play. Maybe Magic is a fairly expensive hobby. Is the last point that I'll go on. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Well, I don't know. It's as expensive as you want it to be.
It definitely is.
You can spend all your money on it if you want, but you don't have to. And you can still play the game without spending money.
And that is why I love cubes.
Okay. Well, there you go, yeah.
Yeah, I was getting there.
Segue.
I was getting there. No, it was totally on purpose.
All right.
I engineered that whole thing.
Yeah, cubes are good. They are good for that reason.
And that's our main topic this week. We're going to talk about cubes and why you might cube, some cubes we've built or experienced. And for me, to get a little anecdotal, is I've met this large group of gamers in the city, the gay gamers, gay geeks of New York, etc., and experienced that same thing where everyone likes Magic, but no one really plays it actively. And what I want to do is have a cube to bring to these events so that if people want to relive their glory days or try Magic for the first time, there's a way they can do it when they don't have to be terribly invested to do so.
Yeah, that's right. I used to do it with friends in UK where I didn't even have a real cube. I would just sort of ad hoc build a set to draft from, once every couple of weeks, and we would do that. Because nobody wanted to spend the money. So we would just draft from all my random M14 cards that I would have had at the time. and just as much fun as it would have been doing anything else.
And
It's
so
a great way to play Magic.
to backtrack slightly, since we did talk about it last podcast, but a cube is essentially a designed set to draft from. And it can take a lot of forms. It can be a singleton cube, like we referenced our friend Chris's Legacy cube.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people think about when they think of cubes. It's a lot of like really powerful cards from the history of Magic put together so that you can draft really powerful decks with these fun cards that are iconic and do really cool things. And you can foil them out. You can get the coolest version of it that you possibly can. A lot of people like to get altered art cards into their cubes or cards signed by artists.
Yeah, I mean, that's just indulging the collector's obsession there in that case. That doesn't increase the playability at all.
It doesn't at all, but
it
like
does turn on all the collectors out there, which is most of us.
Well, and it's like you said, it does enhance the drafting experience when you're like, holy crap, this is the first time I've ever seen a foil Dark Confidant before.
Yeah, right.
Like,
exactly.
I've never held a card like that in my hand, and I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to play with it if I pick it,
Yeah.
It's just it's an interesting
really nice.
experience. A lot of people have probably experienced the Magic Online cube. It's a cube that they run out every once in a while on Magic Online. They have a couple different ones now. Some of them are powered, which if you're not familiar with Magic, the Power 9 are just considered pretty much the most powerful cards in the game of Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
You can play with them only in one sanctioned format.
Yeah.
And this is a chance to play with them, in a very kind of casual way.
Right.
Whereas Vintage is not a casual format at all.
No, Vintage is the only format where those things are legal, and you can only have one in your deck.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, you can't play them. And these are the ones which are astronomically expensive as well. Because not only are they incredibly powerful, but almost all of them are very rare as well.
They only exist in the first 3 sets of Magic, and only very limited quantities of those were printed, and that was more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, kind of hard to get your hands on.
Okay. The other night, I mean, with cubes as well, you're never playing them in a sanctioned way. So, proxies are rife and are fine.
Oh yeah.
If you want to have Power 9 in your cube, then why not? Because just print a copy of them and put them in.
Yeah, our play group in general is very proxy friendly.
Yes.
We would rather play the decks that we want to play or the cubes that we want to play than restrict ourselves to the cards that we own.
Exactly. Yeah, it's playing whatever you want, with a play group and not contributing to the slightly parasitic secondary market.
Hey, maybe that can be a main topic on another episode.
Maybe it should.
No, it definitely shouldn't.
No, we don't want to rant too much.
No, yeah, we got enough of that today.
All right.
But so I really like the idea of using Cube as a tool to engage players who either are kind of like disenfranchised Magic players or just completely foreign to the game but think it's cool. A lot of people get into the Magic just by picking up the cards for the first time and seeing the art. Mm-hmm. And if that's a chance for them to just be like, oh man, look at this Sarah Angel. That's really awesome art.
Yeah.
Then they might do that. They might, it might strike resonance is a very important thing with Magic, where you can pick up a fireball and look at it and go, yeah, that's what a fireball does.
Yeah.
And so getting people to experience that for the first time can be a nice little, shall I say, gateway drug.
Nice. Yeah, I guess you're right.
And so I have 2 cubes that I'm going to talk about today that are both Peasant cubes. Peasant and Pauper are 2 terms that you may not know in the Magic world. Pauper is a format that exists solely using common cards, and so in Magic Gathering there are rarities to the cards. Common cards are the most common. They're the most likely that you're going to print or see. They're printed the most. Many of them have been reprinted many times, so the value on them generally is quite low. Most common cards go for about a quarter.
Yeah, well, there'll be a quarter at the most, I would say.
At the most.
For a general common, apart from ones which are used in Eternal decks.
Yeah. There are some commons that do break that rule that are playable in Modern and Vintage and Legacy. But for the most part, you're looking at 10 cents to 25 cents for a common, sometimes even less. If you can get lucky and, be at a particular store that sells bulk commons in a certain way, or be at a GP or another large Magic event, you might be able to get a great deal where you're picking them up for, a fraction of a cent.
Yeah, or if you're going to drafts in stores,
You
many
can just
players
get free
will just give you
commons.
them for free.
Yeah, they
And
just
if you
throw them
want-
on the
If you
table.
want commons,
No interest.
that's the way to get them.
Yep. And so actually, I'm going to use that as a segue into my first cube.
Uh-huh.
This is a cube that I just recently seized upon the idea, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's something that everyone should do after every format if you're someone who drafts frequently.
Yeah, I agree with this.
It's I created a Peasants of Tarkir cube, or Peasants of Tarkir remastered, where I essentially took 2 copies of each of the best commons in each color. I took some of the multicolor cards. I took some of the mana fixing, and then I took 45 uncommons. Essentially to make the uncommons the rare for the packs that you would generate for this cube. Yeah. It's a 450 card cube, so that means it turns into 30 15 card packs, which is enough to support 10 drafters, or more reasonably, you're probably going to draft it with 8 or less people, and then you can draft it multiple times that way and see different cards. You're not going to see every single uncommon. Yeah. You're not even going to see every single common necessarily. And so it gives it a little bit more play value.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of test drafts with it. I haven't actually gotten it together yet because I donated all of my Cons of Tarkir commons to a friend who runs a Magic the Gathering group at his school. He's a teacher there, and so he has an after-school program, and he asked for just random bulk cards, and I gave him all my Cons ones. So unfortunately, I no longer have Jeskai Wind Scouts or or Savage Punches.
So this is not really. This is from the whole Tarkir block, right?
It's the entire block. So it's Cons of Tarkir, Fate Reforged, and Dragons of Tarkir.
Okay, so that's not trying to replicate any specific draft format.
No.
Which I think is also a nice cube that you could do, and one which I'd quite like to do with Magic Origins.
Yeah.
If it turns out to be a fun draft format,
I think it will.
Which I think that it will.
It looks like it's going to be pretty fun.
I think it's going to be. I think that's going to be kind of a landmark set actually, because that's the way they're intending it to be, and I think that it's going to work out.
But I agree. It's this idea that just randomly occurred to me is I have most of these cards. I can just make this cube right now.
Yeah. It
seems like it would be a fun format. And so after you've drafted, Magic Origins 25 times, you're going to have most of the cards to make that cube. And you can do that with any. If you're one of those people that hoards your cards after a draft season, you can go back right now and make a Theros cube. You can go back right now and make a Return to Ravnica cube, an Innistrad cube.
Yeah. That would be sweet. I'd love to do an Innistrad cube.
It's a pretty, and I don't know if my formula is the best formula or anything like that, but I like 450 cards. I like 2 of each of the best commons that you can find. It might break down a little bit differently in other formats where you might want, 3 of each monocolored common in Ravnica because you have so much space devoted to multicolored cards, but you only play the really powerful monocolored cards to reward people for maybe sticking that way a little bit, to present some interesting deck building options.
So we'll get the list. We'll get the link to the list for Ben's cube up in the show notes here, and you can see what his formula is.
Yes, it's
and I think it's quite
a lot of math went into it. Not actually very much math.
Okay, not math, but just feeling for how rare a card you feel should be, right? How powerful it is, how well it blends with other cards in the cube, and so on.
And actually, I'll go quickly. It's going to be a Cube Tutor link. CubeTutor.com is a website where you can essentially build cubes.
Yeah.
Store them there. You can test draft them. You can do there's all sorts of tools that kind of let you maybe build your cube before you build your cube. And
yeah, right. And also the drafting feature is really good and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious what the algorithms are that let them pick cards. I actually think it's based on gatherer rankings. I feel like it's actually based on numbers of picks that they collect on that site. Oh, really?
Yeah. So when
what's picked most highly, and then it starts weighting it.
Yeah. So when you first do it, it's not gonna really. It's just gonna pick. I guess random cards or some. There might be an algorithm which helps it pick the best card, but I don't know how they would do that. Gatherer ratings have gone downhill, right? I think you can't rate new cards anymore. So.
Oh, okay.
Or something weird like that.
That's news to me.
Yeah, I think they disabled the comments and the rating.
Okay.
But anyway,
But so
I
there's
feel
some
like the bots. There's a way that they work, and it gets
reasonably
you
simulates other people drafting with
Yes, it
you.
does. Yeah, it's good to have a recipe for a cube down when you start.
Yeah, and
Of a certain number of rares, uncommons, commons, mythics, lands that you want to put in. But then actually picking them is another matter. And I mean, so with my cube, which is the Return to Ravnica block thing, which has a lot of rares in it, and is mainly built around flavor. I wanted to tell the stories of each of the guilds, and that leads to some anti-synergies or whatever. But it's mainly built around flavor and including all the kind of cycles, as opposed to just the best cards. So that's another way that you can do it.
I did do a bit of that. Like I definitely wanted it to feel like you were drafting, this block. Like
right.
And so I incorporated, the 3-color morph cycle at common, the Obzon Guide, the Snowhorn Rider, Abomination of Gadul, those representatives of the clans, essentially.
Right. Okay.
Those appear actually quite numerously in the cube, kind of to provide incentive to get into one of those 3-color combinations if you see one late in a pack. Or if you have the fixing that works with it, and just getting it really is. I do feel like a lot of the decks are going to wind up being in those 3-color combinations.
Okay. So it's kind of taking the place of like wanting to windmill slam one of the Khans.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, okay, 3-color combo. I like that.
I mean, I think it kind of drafts very similar to the way Khans of Tarkir did,
right?
Where you're kind of wanting to get yourself into an enemy color pair and then potentially expand into a 3rd color. Once Fate Reforged was introduced too, or actually even before then, a lot of people did 4 and 5 color decks as well, just like aggressively drafting lands.
Right, yeah, for sure.
So that's always an option. I did include in the uncommons quite a few of I include 2 copies each of that uncommon allied color dragon cycle from Dragons of Tarkir, because they do fit into those 3-color niches. I'm talking about like Ruthless Deathfang, Enduring Scale Lord.
These are allied color.
Right. Did I say?
Yeah, no, you said allied.
Yeah, they're the allied colored ones that came out in Dragons, and so that it provides incentive a little bit to maybe just be allied color if you want to, because those very much supported the mechanics of Dragons of Tarkir. Like we're talking about flavor and kind of resonating with the draft. Ruthless Deathfang with a lot of exploit creatures is very powerful.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
A deck that has 2 Ruthless Deathfangs and a lot of exploit creatures would be a very powerful deck in this format.
Yeah, when I was practicing with drafting that, I did find myself taking those dragons and building around those instead of the 3-color morphs.
All right, interesting.
But that might be just because I had more experience with Dragons Limited, and I enjoyed it more than I did Khans Limited.
Yeah, it wound up being a very removal heavy format, just because when you're culling the best spells from each color, just about I think every single removal spell in the block at common, except for Ancestral Vengeance, made it in. Right. Ancestral Vengeance being black enchant creature, it gets -1/-1, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So it's technically a removal spell, but it did not make the cut. Did not get there.
That's pretty bad. All right.
And so that's just any final thoughts on cubes? Anything that we didn't go over?
I think that we've said a lot about cubes, and if you like playing Magic and you like drafting, and you like not spending money, which I guess most people would agree with.
Yes.
Then go ahead and build a cube. Like, just do it from cards you've got, if you have cards.
Or if you've got gamer friends, maybe put together one of these cheap cubes we've talked about.
Yeah. You can go deep and build a real cube, or you can just build it from cards you have, or you can go super deep and build a power cube or whatever you want.
Yeah, use it as a tool
it's a great hobby in itself.
We're all about kind of talking about how we have fun, and it's really a way I think that if you're a Magic player who maybe doesn't have a ton of Magic friends, you can maybe get some of your other gamer friends who are Magic curious into it.
Yeah, get the Magic curious.
Get the Magic curious
it's a good way
ones.
to get them in without them having to spend any money to do it.
Yeah, and then they start spending money, and then Wizard keeps putting out products.
Yeah, and then they go really deep like you have, and etc., etc.
I can keep getting my fix.
Sweet.
Speaking of getting my fix, Magic Origins is coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm excited to crack some packs and play some limited of Magic Origins.
We are deep in spoiler season. We're just a little bit more than halfway through the set at this point. And this is something that, maybe get at us. I would not at all mind doing a set review once it's fully spoiled for limited, constructed, or just fun points. So if that's something
competing with limited resources now.
Yeah. Marshall Sutcliffe, I've got your number.
Yeah.
And that number is far fewer viewers or listeners than yours.
Like orders of magnitude fewer, I think. But.
Probably. And if that's something you're interested in hearing from us, feel free to get at us, because I personally would love to do that, and I will bring Ross along for the ride.
I would also enjoy it, although
okay.
Probably I'd be more bantersome and less...
You'd be providing the color commentary.
Yeah, with less evaluation of the cards, because I'm not so good at doing that. That's why I draft things like Soulstoke Elemental, or whatever it's called, as first pick.
Hey,
Incandescent Soulstoke.
You went 2-1, so that's all that matters.
That's what I go every time we play.
Feels like that for me lately, too.
Why not?
But so we're going to talk a little bit about Magic Origins. We've picked out a couple cards. We're not going to go on an exhaustive review of the spoiler just yet.
No. Just
we're only going to do that
cards.
if you want us to. Yeah. But so we just picked out a couple of cards. So why don't you talk about one of the cards that you liked?
All right. Yeah, so I've got a couple of cards which I like for limited play, which I think seem fun, and which aren't like bomb rares, but have some functionality. And
I assume they're all white commons and uncommons that tap things.
None of them are those things, although
okay.
I probably will end up drafting a lot of those. So my first one is Blazing Hellhound. He's a 4/3 elemental hound creature for 2 black-red, which is pretty good already. So it's passing the vanilla test for me.
Yeah.
It's a Summit Prowler.
Well, right? I mean, it forces you into 2 colors.
It does.
So just on vanilla, it's a little bit worse than Summit Prowler.
Okay, fine. But you get the body of a Summit Prowler for the same converted mana cost. But he has a nice activated ability, which I really like, which is you pay a colorless and sacrifice another creature, and that lets you deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And that has a lot of utility, I think. I really like that. So you can get a lot more value out of your chump blocks. You can chump block and then throw the creature at the opponent, or enable it to trade with something where it wouldn't normally be able to.
Yeah, it makes combat a little bit more of a nightmare, where if they if you can just throw away one of your useless creatures to kill a big guy of theirs, you're not really losing anything.
Yeah, so that's a really nice upside. And the other thing, I mean, doing this ability also just can sometimes give you the extra reach you need to win the game.
Well, and it actually has a few more like things, not to jump all over your card, but like you get to blank removal spells. It makes it a very valueless proposition for someone to point a removal spell at your creature, because you are still getting some value out of it.
Yep, that's right.
It's a sacrifice enabler, which are historically usually very like sought after in Magic sets where they exist. It's usually there's some kind of way that if you put stuff into your graveyard, you don't have an easy way of doing so, but you're rewarded for doing so.
Yeah, that's right.
The most notable in this set, the marquee one, being Liliana Defiant Necromancer.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about
that's a
with
very
her,
easy way to turn her on.
Good.
Probably one of the few ways that you can do it at common and uncommon, I imagine.
Yeah. Doesn't seem super relevant for limited, but I do see that synergy, and it seems very fun.
And speaking of synergy, I spoke of cards that I really like for my cube, and this is one of them. Okay. There's sacrifice synergies in my cube, and I'd love to throw them in there.
Yes,
or
indeed.
Throw it in there.
Yeah, and this is part of an uncommon 2-color creature cycle, which looks really nice.
Yeah, we haven't gotten...
So you chose one of these to talk about as well, so why don't you go for that?
I did. I chose Bounding Krasis, which is a 1 blue-green creature. I believe it is a fish shark,
a lizard fish.
Lizard fish.
Yeah,
yes, it's a lizard fish. It's a simic it's a simic creation. So it's 2 things smashed down into 1.
Nice.
It's a 3/3 creature. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you can tap or untap target creature.
That is just all upside.
It's a 3/3 for 3, which is totally fine in the vanilla test.
Great.
Again, 2 colors makes it not quite as like desirable just on that dint. But the fact that you can play it as an instant makes it virtually a removal spell in the early game. A lot of times you can just block a 2/2 and it eats it, and your fish lizard just ate their 2/2, and you're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, or you can even do that while simultaneously untapping one of your other creatures.
And then eat
blocking a
two of their
second. Yeah, there you
creatures.
go.
Or you could untap another creature and double block a really big creature and trade your Bounding Krasis or other creature for their big creature.
Yeah. Seems like a very good card.
There's also, there's going to be some sort of synergy with things that are powerful to tap or untap that it could potentially play with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's been getting some hype on the forums and on the Twitter for its potential role in like a team or twin type of deck.
Yeah,
because obviously it infinite combos with Splinter Twin or Kiki Jiki.
There you go.
I don't think it's going to get there. Neither do you. We talked about this a little bit beforehand.
I don't think it's better than any of the twin targets that are already there.
I don't think so either. But I'm actually just really excited. I love blue-green tempo decks.
Nice.
I like drafting them. I probably will try to make it happen in standard, depending on the cards that we get. And
sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to also get into standard with this set.
Love me some fish lizards.
Fish lizard tribal.
Fish lizard tribal, either fish or lizards. That's like two tribes. It's like cheating.
Well, there's a card that's both a fish and a lizard, and you just said what it was.
It's true. I did.
Maybe there aren't other cards, though. Can't really go tribal if there aren't any other cards. All right. My second card that I wanted to chat about is Jace's Sanctum, which is a blue enchantment for 3 and a blue, which makes instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less, and whenever you cast one of those, you get to scry 1. That just seems like good value to me.
It does.
I like it. I like the idea of playing that turn 4, and then playing my other card that I wanted to talk about, which is Soulblade Djinn, a 4/3 flying Djinn for 3 blue. And he says, whenever you cast non-creature spells, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So he gives everything prowess.
I have a question for you, though.
Yes.
Jace's Sanctum works on instant and sorcery spells.
Yeah.
And that guy costs 5 mana? Oh, yeah, so that works afterwards. So you're
the turn after, you're going to...
Okay.
I would stockpile my instants and sorceries.
And then have both of these in play.
And then try, Yeah. Have that guy in play, then you cast one, cast another one. They're already cheap by then, so you can cast a bunch and then win.
Just combo them out.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Just cast lots of spells, scry a lot, get yourself some more spells.
Yeah, hopefully you've already got a couple of blue flyers.
Pump your silly little flyers.
Yeah, and profit.
Yeah.
That's what I like. And I mean, I think Soulblade Djinn is perfectly good on its own.
Oh, yeah, it's a 5 mana 4/3 flying. That's eminently playable.
And the incidental prowess for everybody also seems really nice.
Yeah, we had a similar card in Dragons of Tarkir called Strong Arm Monk. It was a 5 mana 3/3 ground pounder that had prowess for all your creatures, essentially.
Yeah.
And that did not really make as many waves as I thought it would. I thought it was going to be a very powerful card, and I've never seen it feature very well in decks, and it never worked well for me.
All right.
But I think this is a much more powerful creature inherently. I think blue is a better position color to abuse spells.
Yeah, for sure.
I think this Djinn is going to do very well.
Yeah, I think he's a good pick.
All right.
I will pick him if I find him.
I had a couple more cards that I wanted to talk about as well.
Yep.
One of them is a common. It is Nissa's Pilgrimage.
What does that do?
It is a ramp spell. It costs 2 and a green. It lets you search your library for 2 basic forest cards, put one of them into play tapped, and one of them into your hand. So it's kind of a fixed Kodama's Reach / Cultivate. Obviously being fixed in the sense that it can only search out basic forests, so it's not going to be finding dual lands in Modern, or should they ever be reprinted in Standard. But it does have a little bit more upside than that. It has Spell Mastery, which is a new mechanic in Magic Origins, where if there are 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, you get an additional rider. And in this case, it's you search your deck for yet another land and put it into your hand, yet another basic forest and put it into your hand.
Pretty weird.
So you're getting 3 cards out of this one card. Admittedly, they're lands, but it's ramping you a turn. It's putting a card into your graveyard for Delve in Standard, which is something that I kind of was hoping we would get Rampant Growth. I was hoping we would just get a 2 mana ramp spell that put a card in your graveyard, because it seems like that's why we didn't get that, is because Delve exists.
Yeah, I mean, this card seems good because you could conceivably keep like a 2-land hand with that card in it, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. You just get, kind of by turn 3, you're going to draw your 3rd land, and then you're going to have 5, at least 5 lands going for you.
And then you can keep whatever else is in your hand and go off on that. So I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. It plays very well with Nissa, where she wants you to have 7 lands in play before she flips. So that's getting you a lot of the way there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a card that's going to see some play, even though at face value it's not the most powerful ramp spell we've ever seen in Standard.
Right. Well, no.
No, definitely not.
Not ever.
No, not ever. The final card that I want to talk about was just spoiled today, actually, and it is called, oh God, what is it called?
Today, we're recording this on Monday.
We're recording this on Monday
the 29th.
Monday the 29th. What is the
Thopter Spy something?
Thopter Spy Network.
That's the one.
Is what it's called.
It's a great name.
It's a fantastic card. Just everything about this card is just tickling every one of my Magic sensibilities.
Yeah.
It's a 2 blue enchantment, and it reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact creature, put a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature with flying into play. So you have to already control an artifact.
Oh, you do?
But
I didn't realize that.
Yes,
I
once
you
you
just
do.
got Thopters every turn.
No,
Okay.
you need to control an artifact first, and then you start getting a Thopter every turn. And obviously, your new Thopters will count as artifacts for your following Thopters, but you do need to have an artifact in play to get started.
Right.
And then there's an additional line. So this is just at its face value there. It's a 4-mana enchantment that your next turn you get a 1/1 creature, as long as you already control an artifact.
Yeah, okay.
Which, not typical.
Sounds terrible so far.
In draft, doesn't sound very good unless we get some cool common artifacts. But in Standard right now, we've got Darksteel Citadel for the time being. We have to assume that there will be some artifacts you'll want to be playing.
Yeah.
Obviously, it seems kind of geared to play with
There's some very exciting rare artifacts in
Pia
Origins too.
and Kara Nala, I forget their names.
Pia and Kieran Nala.
Chandra's folks.
Yeah.
They also have some cool artifact synergies, so
right.
they can put some artifacts into play for this. But to continue reading the card from memory, like I'm doing, it's whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage, you draw a card.
I think it's artifact creatures, right?
Artifact creatures. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deals combat damage, you draw a card.
Yeah.
Something to that effect, more or less. But the wording is very specific so that you don't get a card for each creature that deals damage. You get a card when they all deal damage.
Yeah.
And so this is a card that you're casting it on turn 4.
Yeah.
You're taking a turn off. You're not getting anything out of the card the turn it comes into play.
Yeah.
But it is an enchantment, which is typically a fairly difficult to deal with in permanent type. People aren't usually packing main deck enchantment hate.
Yeah, that's indeed.
A little different in this Standard format where we have Dramoka's Command, but
Okay.
it's generally safer to play a 4-mana enchantment that does nothing than a 4-mana creature.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then that next turn, as long as you controlled an artifact, you're getting a Bitter Blossom. You're getting a creature every single turn.
Yeah. Without the pain.
And and they have evasion. And so in a control deck, which is probably where this card is going to live, should it live, you're getting a chump blocker. You're getting an eventual win condition as you just clog up the board. And you're also getting to draw more cards, if you can afford to, which control decks historically love doing.
Well, all decks loved it, but control decks typically do it the best.
And so it's a very interesting card. It does a lot of things, which I like. Historically, also, Magic cards with a lot of text on them usually wind up being pretty good.
Look at all the text. It's good.
They wind up being either very random or very powerful. And this one, I think, is actually probably going to be more middle of the road. I think it's going to be niche.
Yeah.
I think it may find a deck.
Sounds okay to me.
It's very dependent on having some powerful artifacts that we want to play anyway. Which there does seem to be in the blue-red combination of this deck, kind of of this set, an enchantment or an artifact sub-theme, because the intro pack rare Chandra's Folks, which is what I'm calling
Chandra's
that card
folks.
from now. Chandra's Folks,
Yeah.
are also like artifacts.
Yeah. There's a cool artifact called Pyromancer's Goggles.
More Chandra, more
Seems
Chandra.
cool. I love Chandra.
It's
I can't wait to play Chandra.
Yeah, it's 5 mana, taps for a red mana. If you use that to cast an instant or sorcery spell,
copy
you
it.
just copy it.
Seems stupid,
So
but I love it.
So not only does this ramp you from 5 mana to 6,
Yeah, indeed.
but it can twin cast every single red spell you cast after
Yeah.
that. Every red instant or sorcery.
It doesn't need to be red.
Oh, it doesn't need to be
No,
red.
you just
oh,
need
no.
to spend red mana on it.
So you could say use this to cast a dig through time?
Yeah.
That seems good.
Yeah, dig through time.
That sounds good.
You can copies everything.
But
Anyway.
so we'll save a few more Magic spoilers for the next podcast, I think. Actually, no. I think the set will be fully
Next time
spoiled.
it'll be released by then.
It'll be fully spoiled by then at least.
Yeah. It'll be pre-release, right? I'll be after pre-release, which we will go to and report on.
Oh yes, that is happening.
Yes,
100%.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this set. You were a little more lukewarm on it last time, if I remember correctly. Weren't you? You weren't super excited about Origins, or?
I wasn't before, but having seen some of the spoilers, I think that they're going to, as I said earlier, do a good job of creating a landmark set with a lot of cool stuff in it.
Yeah, I've been around for most of the history of Magic, and so it's being really cool to me. Essentially, it seems like they've developed, each of the 5 planeswalkers is involved with 2 different planes. So we've got 10 planes represented, and each of those 2-color archetypes we talked about before seems like it's going to have some sub-theme for that plane.
Okay.
And so it seems like, this is conjecture in a way, but it seems like kind of black-white is associated with Dominaria, which is the plane that most of Magic the Gathering's history took place on. Like the first, dozen sets of Magic, don't quote me on that, took place on Dominaria. It's like the Greyhawk of Magic the Gathering.
The Greyhawk.
Greyhawk is the kind of universal D&D setting.
Okay.
I'm reaching out to our D&D listeners because this has been a very Magic-heavy
yes, it has.
episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it's the first time we've been back there since Invasion Block. Liliana apparently is originally from there, and
nice.
Apparently she is 500 years old or something to that effect. She is one of the
That's
only
old.
currently in print planeswalkers, aside from like weird ones like Ugin, that are fully sparked planeswalkers. She is from before the Mending, which you're giving me looks right now that make me think that possibly you don't know what I'm talking about.
I do not. I'm not fully up on the lore, but go ahead.
I'll go
I
through
love
it real
it.
quick.
I dig it.
It's interesting story stuff. So planeswalkers originally were these godlike beings, just like you couldn't hurt them really. You had to jump through a lot of hoops to even kill them, or just use just insanely powerful spells. You had to just obliterate them, like literally the spell obliterate.
Right.
Stuff like that. And Magic Creative have realized at one point that this was actually a really hard archetype to tell stories around. Like it's the Superman problem, where if you have an infinitely powerful character, in order to tell stories about him meaningfully, you need to create a kryptonite.
Okay.
And so rather than create kryptonites, they decided to create a story event where basically all of the living planeswalkers gave up the full power of their spark.
Right.
And in doing so, they mended this terrible thing that was happening, these rifts that were happening in Dominaria.
Right.
And that created the rest, what we know now as the Neo-Walkers, the new Planeswalkers that started in Lorwyn with Jace, Ajani, Garruk, who are the other ones? Chandra and Liliana.
Yeah, right.
Which, I guess, spoiler alert, Liliana is not, in fact, a Neo-Walker.
No,
she is an old school walker. She's been around for a real long time, and she's still got a full spark.
Sweet.
So back up Garruk, because you've been coming after her pretty hard, and I'm pretty sure. Well, I mean, we've seen it. She messed him up real good. He is
messed him up real good.
He is a hot mess now.
Oh no! What a hot mess.
And so that's really interesting to me. It's awesome to go back to Dominaria as someone who's been following the Magic storyline. I read the novels. I got really invested for a while.
Read a few, but I'd like to read more. They seem pretty good.
So I'm excited to see where this takes the story. Obviously, it's taking it to Battle for Zendikar in the fall.
Yeah.
But they're planting the seeds here for the future storylines, and the fact that Dominaria was hinted at, we're gonna probably see a return to Dominaria eventually. The swamp art that I saw that I think is associated with Dominaria is very like murky and squalid.
Okay.
And I don't know if you saw. Did you look at all the basic lands?
I looked at some, and they look very kind of old-fashioned.
Yeah,
like the old Magic swamps.
I really like a lot of them are quite beautiful.
Yeah.
The Vryn Islands look great.
Sweet.
But it seems like there's kind of like 2 basic lands for each of the planes that are associated with that color.
Okay.
Or at least 2 basic lands for each planeswalker representing their first and second plane. And so Jace comes from Vryn, and so we've got island from Vryn, and then he goes to Ravnica, so we've got islands from Ravnica.
Nice.
Liliana comes from Dominaria, so we've got Dominarian swamps, and she goes to Innistrad, so we've got Innistrad swamps.
Okay.
So
I like it.
It's really, I mean, the amount of like kind of like
you
thought
maybe want
that
to
went
go
into
and
this
read
set.
a bunch of lore now.
Well, maybe that can be some podcasting for the future. So we can give Card Advantage Cast a run Pokemon for their money.
Right.
Do some Vorthosing.
Yeah, Vorthos.
I do appreciate your run over of Lorwyn block guys because I was not playing during that block, and it was interesting to learn about the story.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm just going to shout out to podcasts today.
Nice.
So wow,
I think that's going to do it for us this time.
Closing it on 2
long one.
hours, possibly less, maybe with some editing. I don't know. But so we're going to sign out for the week.
Yeah. So thanks for listening. And again, you can follow us on Twitter and get at us. We're at Generic Nerdism.
At Generic Nerdism or genericnerdism@gmail.com. I am Cardicus on Twitter.
And I am at Rogflu.
Rogflu. We'll have those in the show notes if you don't feel like listening to spellings or guessing.
Yeah, they'll be there. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. We look forward to Magic Origins. We look forward to playing more D&D and talking about that.
Yeah.
I've got some plans for D&D myself personally. I am going to do some DMing in the future.
Nice.
And so we can talk about that too. And just to go back to the beginning again really quickly, game consciously. Just think about what you say.
Yeah.
I'm working on it right now. You heard me correct myself saying guys. It's like built into me to call Magic cards guys regardless of the art. And I'm trying not to do that.
All right. Well, what do you want to call them? Creature.
I want to call them creatures, or if it's clearly a male creature, I'll call it a guy.
Okay,
I'll call it a dude.
Yeah.
I'll call him by his name. But it's something I hear a lot is the dragons from Dragons of Tarkir and Fate
Reforged. He, yes.
Yeah, they're always like, oh yeah, he, and I'm
How
like,
many
no,
of them are
actually,
female?
most of them are female.
Is it 3?
Only the blue ones are male.
Okay.
And so Kalagan, Dramoka, and Atarka,
Yeah,
all
right,
female.
yeah.
So
Great.
that's a shout out to all the female dragons of history, and
They're
all
the
the
best ones.
female players of Magic cards and D&D. I really feel for you and want to do everything I can to get you a better spot in our communities.
Yeah. People, be cool.
Be cool.
Be cool, guys.
That's a great movie.
Okay. All right. Well,
Signing off.
That's going to sign off. Thanks for listening to Benny and the Butler.
Ending on a strong note.
Goodbye.